Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii March. Folks, we got a lot to get to. Let's first talk about the great signing, the historic signing of the Anti-Lynching Bill by President Biden. We'll get some details and some analysis from Dr. Jeff Menzies to give us some understanding about the significance of this bill. Also, Republican Senator Susan Collins says she will put her support behind voting for the Supreme Court nominee, Judge Ketanji Jackson. She says she's moving forward with it. This looks like it is pretty much a guaranteed confirmation. Later, we'll discuss how there are some calls for Judge Clarence Thomas to resign because of his wife's text messages to the Trump administration. What do you think? And then later, let's talk all sports with Coach Butch McAdams. Stay with us. We got a lot to get to. You're all tuned in to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the show. Welcome. So excited about what we got lined up for you today. So let's jump right into it. All right, let's talk about this very, very historic signing of a very important bill, a bill that has been long overdue, which is this bill about the anti-lynching bill. They call it the, they talk about the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill, which is a bill that basically speaks about the race and hate crimes that are committed in this country. Now, this is a bill that has been tried to come before the president many times, not just President Biden. But folks, check this out. They talked about there have been 200 attempts to have an anti-lynching bill. Are you serious? Yes, I'm very serious. So this bill that was just signed by President Biden yesterday is the first bill of its kind in the United States history. The first bill of its kind. And it was a bill that was brought up by Representative Bobby Rush of Illinois, Democratic Representative Bobby Rush, who said that this bill needed to be signed. This has to be done. It was long overdue. Today, I wanted to have a conversation about the significance of this bill with Dr. Jeff Menzies to give us some understanding. Dr. Jeff is a wellness scholar, is a wellness instructor. He's a scholar, and he's a social justice advocate. And we are so happy to have him join us today here on The Culture. Also joining us is our Culture crew member, my brother Elijah Miles, chairman and founder of Tendaya Family. But first, let's go to Dr. Jeff. Dr. Jeff, thank you so much for checking in with us, dear brother. How are you?
Pretty good, man. I appreciate the invitation.
Absolutely. Dr. Jeff, when we talk about this bill, like I said, I saw and read that there have been 200 failed attempts for a bill of this magnitude to be signed by the president of the United States. I'm wondering what was the big difference maker in getting President Biden to sign this bill yesterday?
Well, I mean, it's really hard to speak on what the inner workings were, other than the fact that it's definitely an opportunity for him to appear a certain way. I'm always dealing with how things appear and how
the optics.
Exactly. The optics, how they appear to the masses, and what could that possibly do for his campaigning? Because he's a politician, and these types of things, is these grandiose acts. Where I'm not diminishing the fact that it's been signed. The bill has been signed finally, and the impact that has, and even the historical legacy. I know there are plenty of ancestors that are truly celebrating, and even many of our elders who have been fighting this fight for so long, they're actually celebrating this when they should be. It's something to be celebrated. But I think there was more of like an opportunity. It's like, hey, let's go ahead and push this through right now. But I can't really speak to how genuine he is behind it or not. But I just know there's politics, and this is a very hot political issue, and you can put this in a W column for him.
It's a W column. Now, this is law HR 55. Again, it's known as the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, which makes lynching a federal crime. And this is something that, again, Representative Bobby Rush of Illinois put forth. I want to share with folks what Bobby Rush said, what Representative Rush said about this bill, because it's significant as to why he decided to put this forth to the Congress to the Congress, and exactly what has happened. He said, quote, "The Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act will ensure that anyone who commits the monstrous act of lynching will be prosecuted under federal hate crime laws, as they should have been all along, and will send a clear message that our nation is finally willing to reckon with the gruesome history of lynching in America." Very, very gruesome history. Even President Biden got into more details. I want to play what President Biden said and show you just a little bit about what happened yesterday at the signing of this bill. Check this out, folks.
Over 100 years ago, in 1900, North Carolina Representative named George Henry White, the son of a slave, the only black lawmaker in Congress at the time, who first introduced legislation to make lynching a federal crime. Hundreds of similar bills have failed to pass. Over the years, several federal hate crime laws were enacted, including one I signed last year to combat COVID-19 hate crimes. But no federal law expressly prohibited lynching, none, until today. One of the leading chronicles of our history of the lynching is Brian Stevenson, who happens to be a Delawarean from my home state, who wanted very much to be here today, but he could not. He helped build a National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Montgomery, Alabama, America's first site dedicated to understanding the legacy of lynching. You know, his extensive research showed that between 1877 and 1950, more than 4,400 black people were murdered by lynching, most in the South, but some in the North as well. That's a lot of folks, man, and a lot of silence for a long time. Lynching was pure terror to enforce the lie that not everyone belongs in America, not everyone is created equal. Terror to systematically undermine hard-fought civil rights. Terror, not just in the dark of the night, but in broad daylight. Innocent men, women, and children hung by nooses from trees, bodies burned and drowned and castrated. Their crimes? Trying to vote, trying to go to school, trying to own a business, or preach the gospel. False accusations of murder, arson, and robbery. Simply being black.
And Dr. Jeff, when you hear about the atrocities that our people have faced as a result of lynching, now the president gave one data. The other statistic that I saw was from the Equal Justice Institute, where they said that more than 6,500 Americans were lynched between 1865 and 1950. Mm-hmm. And so when we hear about all of those lynchings, all of those incidents, and you see this president finally saying it's a federal law, and I want to let folks know that they're not just talking about hanging from trees. They're not talking about just that. They're talking about anything that's related to race. And so what we saw with Ahmaud Arbery, for example, would be would fall under, would be a crime under this bill. Is that correct, Dr. Jeff?
Yeah. And so, you know, anything that has to deal with a race-based causing a bodily harm and or death would now be considered lynching, according to this bill. That's, you know, is actually an addendum to an existing hate crime law. And so, you know, which is really good, you know, because for so long people have been able to dodge the language of lynching, because traditionally, as you stated, it's been thought to be somebody literally hanging from a tree, not realizing that, you know, people hanging from a tree at that time, I understand it to be ceremonially, you know, it's done in ceremony and done as a ritual. But, you know, that lynchings occur in many other ways. When you think about, God, forgive me for forgetting the brother's name. I think the first name was James. He was dragged behind a pickup truck in Texas years ago.
I know exactly the story you're talking
Yeah,
about. Yep. Yes, sir.
forgive me for forgetting his last name, but yeah, the brother was dragged behind a pickup truck to his death, racially motivated. That's a hate crime. Drugging somebody and they inflicting bodily harm because of their race, hate crime. Or lynching. So that's what happens, is that this has now been expanded. And I just want people to be very clear, though, that the signing of this bill, it does not change the heart and minds of people. And that's the one thing that Ida B. Wells was all about. She talked about how it was not the changing of people's hearts and minds that we were really going for here, because that would be futile, but we needed to change public policy as well, and then which would then hopefully impact the behavior. And so with the stiffer punishment and the recognition of these hate crimes as lynchings, race-based hate crimes as lynchings, then it gives it gives continuity to that language and shows how, as Mr. Fuller says, that racism and white supremacy, it refines itself. And so if people are still getting hanged, we would be very clear that lynching is still occurring. But now when Absolutely. We see that, for example, and I don't know if the bill is going to go this far, if any attorneys would flex it in this way, but when you see the large numbers of African-American women, who died during childbirth, and if you could prove some type of neglect and prove some type of race-based neglect, could that also be considered lynching? Because to me, those are acts of lynching. When you talk about the flooding of certain communities with certain chemicals and drugs, right? And it causes bodily harm. And it's race-based because it's these particular communities that get these things. That could be considered lynching. When you look at the numbers of the food deserts that African-American people tend to live in, and the types of substances that are provided to them for nutritional purposes that cause bodily harm, cancer, diabetes, stroke, environmental toxins, those types of things that are causing these diseases in a community, and it's based on race, those can actually also be called lynching. So I would love for our legal brothers and sisters out there to really get creative and expand their understanding of what this actually means and how it could actually be utilized, because we could begin to address a lot of this racism as it exists in many of these other industries that have these non-traditional forms of lynching of Black people.
Absolutely. Folks, we've been talking to Dr. Jeff Menzie, as he is a scholar from Morgan State University. He's also done work in many other capacities, but we've been talking about this anti-lynching bill that was just signed by President Biden. I want to bring in Culture Crew member Elijah Miles to get his take on this as we continue to have this conversation. Elijah, thank you so much, brother, for joining us once again today. Oh, okay. All right, we're going to check back. It looks like we're going to get back to Elijah. But let's look at this situation here from this vantage point, because I think one of the big things that you pointed out, Dr. Jeff, is the fact that this is broad, that this could cover a lot of the injustices that our people have been facing for many years from various sources. And I think that it does open up the conversation whether you're talking about environmental issues, whether you're talking about police brutality, whether you're talking about educational issues. I mean, it opens up the door. One of our watchers, Brock Diamond, said we need to discuss the ins and outs of this bill in depth, not just gloss over it, since our ancestors died for this. And I agree. I would definitely agree that there needs to be a way for us to build the momentum around this bill. Also, John checked in on our YouTube page and said, look, one step at a time is better than no steps at all. So we are at this place with this president. Part of me, and you said this in your opening remarks, Doc, part of me is looking at the situation and saying, maybe, this finally got passed because Biden is like 0 for 3 when it comes to certain race-oriented legislation that have come to the Congress and that has yet to be passed. I'm thinking about the Voting Rights Act. I'm thinking about the George Floyd Justice for Policing Act. All of those things that have come before the president and has yet to be passed. So I feel like this was a win that he needed to have just as much as we needed to have. And it's unfortunate because, everything is so politicized today. And I know that people love to kind of take a space of, this group or that group. But this is you're talking about an injustice that has and the president said it, This thing has terrorized Black communities, particularly in the South, for years. One of the big reasons why there have been hundreds of failed attempts to get a bill like this across is because a lot of these senators were from the South. And they found that they thought that having a national or federal anti-lynching bill would impede upon states' rights. They also had a personal view about lynching.
Yeah,
and
I
so
think that they're not. I don't think that they are. And you didn't say this, but I don't think that they were necessarily afraid to pass this bill because the repercussions for such. I mean, you still have to prove that it was a hate crime. You still have to prove that it was actually lynching for this to actually even be useful, right? And so I think it's more of a symbolic gesture. And I think that the pushback more so was that we're not giving them anything type of attitude. More so, I'm concerned that if this bill passes,
pushback from who? I'm sorry, dear brother. You said the pushback
from the people over the last 100 years who would not sign this act or who would not consider lynching to be a federal crime, right? Okay, whoever's been resisting it for all this time, even the three Congress members who didn't sign it this time, in the House, right? And so I'm saying whatever that pushback is, I'm pretty sure it's not because they fear repercussions and how this could possibly shift justice. I think it was more from the attitude of we ain't giving them nothing because we don't have to give them anything. But when you look at for example, in our state of Maryland, we recently here at the Institute for Urban Research at Morgan, we wrote a report for the state. Right, it was a Senate bill that we tried to get to go through that dealt with hate crimes and lynching. And my part of it just happened to be about lynchings in America. And I actually looked at, I did like a kind of like a psychoanalytical approach to lynching using the works of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. And, so I looked at lynching in the state of Maryland and, lynching, Maryland was like 18th on the list of states dealing with the number of lynchings that took place between 1877 and 1950 with 28 lynchings. But when part of that narrative that I wrote for the state Senate, dealt with how lynching, the concept itself should be expanded. I'll just read you a small section. It says, these lynchings were almost always public affairs, with several occurring on the courthouse lawn or to a victim who was, in one way or another, retrieved from the custody of local law enforcement. Fast forward to the 21st century, and these lynchings take the form of the infamous rough ride that was suspected to cause Freddie Gray's death while in police custody, or even the death of Sandra Bland, who was accosted along the side of a road and later found dead in her jail cell. And so those are, again, as I was stating, those are those are different ways that we can actually view lynchings and see that when you look historically in the state of Maryland, like Queen Anne's County, there's a lynching of Asbury Green in 1891. You see these things made the newspaper. They were big news stories, mostly covered by the Black press, but also covered by the white press as well. But you see that these made big stories. They were hot topics. And sometimes I cringe at that because I see it sometimes as entertainment for people as well. Because not everybody feels negatively about the lynching of Black people, right? Not everybody feels negatively. In fact, some people wear it as like a badge of honor of their ancestrals' triumph over an entire population of people, and to be able to take somebody's life at will without punishment. And so, like when we got the slave memorials and the lynching memorials, I'm always shy away from those things because I do know that some people are celebrating those because those are symbols of honor for certain groups of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other part of this conversation is, how do we take this piece of legislation and build upon it, right? Like I feel like Doc, that there has to be a number of bills or acts that has to be put before the president that specifically starts the process of healing. And I'm not going to get into this part of the conversation with you as of right now, but there has been a growing demand for reparations. We know that conversation is prevalent. We know that the folks are working on the House side to try to get this HR 40 moving forward. But I feel like there needs to be a package of bills or legislation that starts to address the historic injustice that has been caused to Black people, whether it's reparations, whether it's lynching, whether it's, anything that has historically put us at a disadvantage, that it needs to be righted by this country. Do you feel like this president or this administration is in the best position or the better position to start addressing some of these long systemic wounds that have yet to be healed because of past presidents' administrations.
Well, what I would have to ask is, better than who? You said past presidential administrations. I don't know if this administration is in any better position than anybody else, other than the advancement of time. This is the most recent and the current administration, which means that they are the furthest ahead in time. I mean, other than that, and they're the only ones that are present right now. So with that being stated, yes, they have the best advantage because it's the present one. No, past administrations can't do anything about it. But on the flip side, I don't know if bills, flooding the judiciary branch and Congress, the judicial, the executive, and the why am I blocking the third form of
the executive, judicial,
executive, judicial, and then what's the one in Congress and executive, judicial, and legislative branch. Dang, man, I don't know why.
Right. I hear you. I got so much information, but go ahead, brother.
My 8th grade U.S. history teacher shaking their head at me right now, fam. But anyway, we could just flood it with, the pushing for bills to go through and different acts and laws and all that type of stuff. And to me, that's not healing, though, right? That's just, to me, a lot of these gestures, I would say, they produce non-tangibles, although this one can be utilized by those of us that are practicing law right now. We'll get creative and begin to utilize these advances, but that's one approach. I think that the healing is going to have to be multi-systemic and multi-layered. So we're going to need, like, for example, funding to the Association of Black Psychologists, for example, there's National Association of Black Social Workers, for example, the National Association of Black School Educators. These Black organizations that are designed to improve mental health, physical health. So that's the AMA, Dr. Fred Wells was a part of. Or the National Medical Association, my bad, the NMA, and educators who are all interested in having better outcomes for Black people to get the funding and the support and the credibility that they deserve, so they can go about doing their work in easier ways. So that their budgets aren't, a budget is not a constraint that's keeping Black psychologists who are daily practicing healing methodologies for people who are having psychological issues. Right? We need to fund them so that there's no question about their ability to service large numbers of people and to get more people through academia that can then become licensed and then can become practitioners, legal practitioners, psychological practitioners, medical doctor. Those are the people that are signed up to be healers of the masses. Those with the African-centered or Black orientation need to be supported on the front line so we can do what you're saying, which is bring about this healing.
Absolutely. And we were talking about the legislative branch. My wonderful watchers have joined in. So Janae, Brock, thank you so much. And then you talked about the case of James Byrd. That was the case of James Byrd, who was the brother
thank you for that.
in Texas. Yes. So thank you to my watchers who always keeps us on point. I want to bring in now Culture Crew member Elijah Miles, chairman, founder of Tendea Family. Elijah, thank you so much, brother. Always good to talk to you.
Thanks for having me once again.
Absolutely. Elijah, when you think about this bill, this piece of legislation, the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Bill, the president signed it. It is many people say it is a huge victory. It's a long overdue victory. But what comes to your mind? How do you feel about, us having the conversation? And most importantly, how do we start to build on what this bill has essentially started?
Well, first of all, when I think about the anti-lynching bill, and I watch President Biden's speech very closely, I think it's symbol without substance. Because as I listen to him talk about and bring up the names of Ida B. Wells to pacify us, bring up the name of Rosa Parks to pacify us, the name Emmett Till to pacify us, and when he talked about modern day lynching, the only thing he could bring up was Ahmaud Arbery. And for those people that don't remember, Ahmaud Arbery was the brother that was killed, was running, that was killed by two white men. And the reason he brought up that situation, because that situation was neutralized because those men were found guilty and are now facing time. But he didn't bring up Mike Brown. He didn't bring up Freddie Gray. He didn't bring up all of these people that were killed by police. And so on one hand, he's using something to pacify us, but he won't bring up the real lynching that's happening in modern day, which is police genocide against Black people. It's not just regular white men doing crazy stuff to Black people, though that happens. The real lynching today is white people in uniforms, in police uniforms with badges that are destroying Black people and killing unarmed Black people. And I know he knows the names of Mike Brown and Freddie Gray and Eric Garner. These people sparked uprisings all across the country. But he said Ahmaud Arbery and said many others because he wants to placate us and also placate the police followers and supporters. So I don't think in the presentation of how this thing is going that those people are really interested in doing something serious about lynching that's happening today. And so for me, I think it looks on the surface like it's some big deal, but it's more focused on the past than it is on the future.
Dr. Jeff, what's your take on that?
I mean, he echoed a lot of the stuff that I've already stated, so I would just be reiterating the same points. Yeah, but it's very much so an emotional and it's non-tangibles here, and it's just what it is. And this is what happens in politics, though. A lot of times, is you get emotional feeds, you get people playing on emotions, people having symbolic gestures, but when you look for the substance, it's often not there. And that's why I was saying that we need our legal scholars and legal practitioners, to be able to actually, utilize this and start to leverage this new act, to actually start to prosecute, which then will hopefully deter people from behaving this way. But when you think about it, it's like, again, what I mentioned earlier about Ida B. Wells, it wasn't about changing people's hearts and minds because that would be futile. And when you think about the psychological condition that a person is in, the psychological state that a person would have to be in to lynch another human being, that's not a reasonable person anywhere. And they're usually not afraid of the repercussions of getting caught. They usually don't think that far ahead. They don't care. So, so passing a law, they don't care usually about getting caught anyway, because they're committing a heinous crime that you can't have any type of love or concern in your heart to do.
Let me ask you this, and I know, Doc, that you're going to have to jump off, but before you do, how do we make sure that this bill is not, and to Elijah's point, that this bill is not used as a bill that speaks to all of the injustice, so people won't use this bill as an excuse instead of seeing it as a bill to take us further along in the great struggle for liberation and equal justice and having truth. How do we not make sure that this bill is just okay, well, y'all got this bill, so y'all good now. Mm-hmm. How do we keep out of that place?
So much of that is on us as individual people in the collective. For us to do our own refinement, for us to continue to grow and improve upon ourselves and not be dependent upon nor seeking other people to validate us and treat us correctly. We should be treating ourselves more correctly than anybody else could ever treat us. Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. talks about becoming a universal man and universal woman, meaning constantly striving for your superior status within your own existence. So then that way, when anybody encounters you, they're encountering a high level version of you. And so let's say if somebody did decide they want to lynch somebody, when the last time you heard somebody from the FOI getting lynched or experience a police brutality? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's because there's an image of self-discipline within that group of people. There's this idea that no, you mess with them, you're going to get messed with back. So they're going to kind of yield on that. Right. And so when we all become that particular label, we exude that characteristic, then it's less likely that anything like this will ever be needed again anyway, because folks will be self-checked at that point. Absolutely.
Dr. Jeff Menzie, thank you so much, brother, for the work that you continue to do, and most importantly, for your time to join us for this conversation day today. We would love to bring you back on other discussions, dear brother.
Right on. Appreciate the invitation, man, and just let me know when, bro.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about Republican Senator Susan Collins saying, yes, Judge Ketanji Jackson got my vote. So with Joe Manchin, now with this Republican senator saying yes, both saying yes, it looks like it's a guarantee, right? We'll have that conversation with Culture Crew member Elijah Miles and you. So stay riding with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, it looks like the confirmation and just history is just a few days away as we are expecting to see the confirmation of Supreme Court nominee Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. It was just another vote has come in for the judge from Republican Senator Susan Collins. Now, this senator has gone on record to say, check this out, folks, after reviewing Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's extensive record, watching much of her hearing testimony and meeting with her twice in person, I have concluded that she possesses the experience, qualifications, and integrity to serve as an associate justice on the Supreme Court. I will therefore vote to confirm her to this position. Now, last week, a Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia said that he too will put his vote behind confirming Judge Jackson. And so it looks like the path is clear for her to make history. Now, I want to share with you what's going to be happening with this whole process, because we shared with you last week that there are a few steps before history is finally made, but the Supreme Court nominations are done. And now the Senate Judiciary Committee is looking to move the process along. The committee has announced that the panel will reconvene on April the 4th, which is actually, if you know, the history is the death date of Dr. Martin Luther King. And so they're going to reconvene on April the 4th at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for a vote to advance Judge Jackson's nomination to the entire Senate floor. And then afterwards, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer hoped for a final confirmation vote before the Senate goes on Easter recess starting on April the 8th. Now, I want to bring Culture Crew member Elijah Miles back into this conversation. First and foremost, Brother Elijah, we've been talking about this story. My big brother Roland's been talking about this story. But with Senator Collins putting her support behind it, this is the one Republican that has came out. They also are saying that we may hear from Senator Lisa Murkowski and Senator Mitt Romney of Utah as well that are going to put their support behind it. But that's all they need. They just need at least one. I mean, we already know that in terms of numbers, Vice President Kamala Harris was going to serve as the tiebreaker for this nomination. But you got one or two Republicans, it looks like it's a straight shot for history to be made, brother.
And I think it's powerful. And I think a Republican standing up and saying, I'll support her for the next Supreme Court justice is a big deal, because it's such a political divide, brother Farajii. It's such a political divide in the country right now. So much so that you got the Capitol uprisings recently. So it, like, things like this bipartisanship, this coming together of these political parties is the thing that could be able to heal the country and heal America in some ways. But as long as people are divided along political lines and they just going based off of what their party is doing, then things will stay problematic. And so it takes real courage to stand up in the midst of your party and say, you know what, I respect her, I support her, I think she'll be an excellent Supreme Court justice. When others like Ted Cruz and other people that are Republicans have completely shredded her and tried to destroy her and tried to say that she don't have any experience, that she's not a good person, that she
protects child predators.
Yeah, that she protects child predators, and she's not hard on child predators. Lindsey Graham being one of them also. So it takes real courage to stand up against these people that are leaders in the Republican Party and say, nope, but I respect her, and I think she has great character. She'd be a great justice.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way too, brother. I mean, you know, I was a little bit shocked that Joe Manchin said it. I'm gonna be honest with you. This dude, I mean, I don't want to say this dude. I'm gonna respect the title in the office, so I'm gonna say this senator. You know, you don't know what you're gonna get with him, right? And even when he announced that he was going to put his support behind Judge Jackson, I was like, that may not still be enough, because he just, you know, politicians, they can fold under pressure. So you and I both know this, Elijah. So, you know, if you folded under pressure, then all you got to do is put that pressure on, and then your vote flips. But to see Senator Susan Collins put her support behind this, it's like, okay, all right, we're in a much better position to win. Now, I know that a lot of people are trying to figure out, and some people are still saying, well, what about her judicial philosophy? Some people are still questioning her experience and, you know, her thoughts on things like that. But I always ask people, I'm like, do you do this type of scrutiny? Did y'all do this scrutiny when any of those other justices were being nominated for the seat? I mean, did y'all really put that type of scrutiny? I mean, we're going to talk about Clarence Thomas in a little bit. But did you do this type of scrutiny for anybody else? And, you know, it's always when it comes to Black women, it's always when it comes to Black people or to our Latino brothers and sisters, it becomes this thing like, oh my gosh, we have to comb through every detail of their professional lives to see that if we meet the standard. And the BS is, this is the BS, Elijah, and I know you can speak to it. The BS is, y'all set precedents or standards or criteria that you yourself don't even follow.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And that's the hypocrisy. That's one of the things I hate about politics. You try to set this ideal, you try to set this standard, this is for the American people and we stand and blah blah blah. But then you doing the corrupt, you doing underhanded things. You're doing the very thing to violate the standards that you profess. And that's one of the things that I think that this country suffers from a lot, but hypocrisy has to be the top of the list.
That's right. And Kavanaugh would have never got into office if they cared anything about morality and standards and things like that. And it's so funny how much Kavanaugh got brung up by the Republicans, how much he got brought up and how his confirmation went. Because what you see is that a lot of them are out for revenge. A lot of them are out to avenge what they feel was done to Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
So it's sick. But it's not about standards. It's not about morality. It's about winning. It's about your party winning and about beating the other opponent. And so it's just a big major divide. And I believe that far as the United States of America, it can't go on like that. It can't go on like that. You can't do politics like that for another 50 years and stay on top of the game as a world power.
Absolutely.
Which is why America in many ways is in decline. So
it's a big decline. Let me throw this data out for those who don't know. 70%, folks, only 70% of the 3,843 people who have ever served as federal judges in the United States, fewer than 2% have been Black women. And this is according to the Federal Judicial Center. 70 of 3,800 judges, federal judges in the United States have been Black women. 70. She was one. So now that means that there's another opportunity for another Black woman, right?
That's right.
But 70. And folks don't, and you know, I know Roland talks about this all the time, and we've talked about this on this show. The decisions that we see, whether it's in police brutality cases, those judges
matter. Yeah.
Man, yeah. Man. When they get those, what do they call them, Brother Elijah? When they do the hearings, but it's like a closed door hearing. It's not a public hearing, and the word escapes me. But
me too.
When those judges mean everything in those cases, right? Mean the grand jury. That's what I'm thinking of. Grand juries. When they have those grand jury hearings, those judges mean everything. And I remember we had attorney. Oh man, name's escaping me today, brother. Okay. My man. I'm gonna come back to me. But there's one attorney that came onto the show, and he talked about this. He said that we often don't even think about the important role that judges play, and 9 out of 10 times we don't even know the records of judges.
Right.
And I'm talking about from local judges all the way up to the federal judges. So when people talk about everything else, yes, we could talk about the council person, we could talk about the president, we could talk about the alderman, the wards, and all of those things. But if you don't know those judges, that means that when your son or your daughter, or even when you get and stand in front of a judge, you don't know. You got to know the judicial philosophy and the politics of that particular judge.
Definitely. Because judges have a supreme amount of power. And like you said, we worry about the president, the mayor, the governor. We worry about all of these people. But judges have an extraordinary amount of power. And when we live in a time where 1 in 3 Black men are going to prison in their lifetime, or 1 in 3 Black men are under the jurisdiction of some penal institution, whether it's parole or probation or jail or prison, man, we have to pay attention to judges, because you can't go and catch 50 years or 25 years or any of those types of things for any crime without standing in front of a judge that's handing that thing down. So we have to pay more attention to judges. And like you said, pay attention to their politics, pay attention to their record, and hold them accountable. Because in some cities, man, some of these racist judges sit on the bench for way too long, and they just go relatively unnoticed. And yet they victimize a whole generation of Black boys and girls specifically, and we do nothing about it. So judges matter. Judges matter.
Judges matter. And again, I want to make sure I didn't say this incorrectly. 70 total, not 70%. 70 total judges are Black women. That are 2% of the 3,800 over 3,800 federal judges that currently sit on the seat. Now, the other thing about this is that, while we were all looking at what was going on with this confirmation hearing, do you know, Brother Elijah, according to a recent poll done by the Marquette Law School, they said, and they found that 2/3 of Americans approve Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. Check this out, folks. 2/3 of Americans said that if they were senators, they would vote to confirm Judge Jackson. and that nearly half of the poll's respondents described the appellate judge as, quote, very qualified to serve on the nation's highest court. That's, again, we're looking at a huge shift, bro.
That's right.
There's a huge shift in attitude, sentiment about the qualification, the significance and value, and the expertise of Black women in this type of role.
That's the truth.
There's a shift that's happening in this country, because I do know that, you know, when we talk about even when we was talking about the whole Will Smith situation, right? That people are like black women, but there are some strides that are being made. There is progress being made to change the people's perception of Black women in this country. And I think that has to be noted, brother, just as much as there's a lot of work that needs to be done, like the work that you're doing, for example, in lifting up Black women and being a part of the community. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done, but there is a changing tide. And I truly believe, I try to settle on the best part of people.
That's right.
And I try to stay optimistic in spite of all of the other stuff. And I see that there is a growing or changing tide in this country around seeing Black women in power.
Yep, that's the truth. Because when it comes to her, she's like the Barack Obama of judgeships. Like,
come on, oh boy, there you go.
That's why it was crazy that people were trying to assassinate her character, because I was like, dang, it don't get more qualified, more educated, more morally upright than this lady right here. If she can't get it, then none of us got to stand a chance, because she like, who don't have skeletons in their closet? And every time someone's about to be confirmed, even back with Clarence Thomas, every time somebody's about to be confirmed, they pull these skeletons out their closet. But they really was harping on the predator or the pornography cases because they didn't have nothing. And so I knew she was great then. But the fact that
and Elijah, real quick, I mean, I thought that whole situation about being soft on child predator, who the hell? I mean, this woman is a federal judge. Who the hell is going to sit in front of Congress and senators and the whole world with a record that's soft on child predators and sit there with great dignity and pride? Who the hell would do that?
Right.
I mean, who has who has the testicular fortitude and be like, "Yep, I let child predators off the hook," and "Yep, I want to be on the Supreme Court." What? I mean, just to even bring that up, it's like, do you really? I mean, where is your mind, to think that here's this woman who's worked tirelessly in the field? She's putting in all this time in. She's raising a daughter, right? She's got a whole family, and you think she's gonna be soft on child predators?
Yep.
No, man. That's you know. I'm gonna just say it. No, you need to some of these senators. You need to check yourself. You imposing your issue on somebody else, because some of y'all need to check yourself.
That's right. You know, some of them are up to some crazy
stuff.
Up
to some madness.
The swings. Yeah,
you know what I mean? They just doing some madness, and you know it. And I'm not. And look, I don't get into people's personal lives. You know, I was always taught you don't have to attack people personally. You can certainly attack their ideas and their programs. So let's not even get into that. But my point is that absolutely is so ass backwards that you think this woman is going to stand up there in front of the whole world and stand on a record that's soft on child predators.
Yeah, and they didn't have nothing. They didn't have nothing for her. And as she explained, I did what other judges are doing. So I've stuck to the standard that we are following when it comes to cases like this. And but yet still, that's not enough. Because they really don't have nothing to assassinate her with. So they ask her ridiculous questions like, what is a woman? And try to get her in places and put her in a corner to get viral moments on her behalf or for them, but also just to try to publicly embarrass her.
I mean, just a thing. And look at that question: what is a woman? Or did you watch Judge? And we playing the clip right now. Did you watch Judge Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing?
Right.
And it's just like she just going, no, I didn't. No.
Right. That was beautiful.
Come on.
Not really.
Like, you didn't watch Judge Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing? Like, no, I didn't. Hey, what do you want me to? No, I wasn't checking for it like that. What do you want me to say?
You can't use me to make your point. You gotta make
right.
Now you gotta come out and say, "Well, I just hated what they did to him."
Right. I mean, it's just it gets you gotta laugh because you see the foolishness and you see the madness. And let me just say this, and I know you understand this point, Elijah. When you start to show the American people that side of you, it really puts a bad taste in your mouth, not for the person that's being questioned, but the person that's posing the question.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like somebody who comes up to you and they want to share some gossip about somebody else.
Yeah.
And then you hear the gossip and you're like, yeah. But then you looking at the person who's sharing the gossip with a crooked eye, like, so why are you bringing that to me?
Yeah.
I just heard. Did you? Now we questioning your intentions and your motives.
Yeah. None of those people that were questioning her were morally qualified to question her. Of course, they got positions, they're senators, but they didn't have anything to stand on to question her.
Right. Right. So now that we're like I said, it looks like the path is going to is pretty clear.
Yeah, she
I think, and we've been saying this, that in spite of all of the foolishness and the mockery, that she stands very strong has a strong public record. She has the support. What should the community's role be in our expectations of her job? Because I know that you brought up Barack Obama. I never forget that when President Barack Obama got into office, the expectations were so high.
Right.
And I would say in some cases so unrealistic.
Right.
That, it was like the expectation meeting the reality. It was just too much. Like the expectation crushed the weight. I mean, the weight of the expectation crushed the reality of where we are with the fact of the type of Congress he was in, the type of person that he was in, what was on his agenda versus what was on our agenda. So what should our expectations be, brother? Just from your vantage point and experience and your understanding of things, what should our expectations be?
That's a great question. In my opinion, I think that our expectations of the judge should be to serve unbiasedly as she possibly can, but also use all her experiences and who she is. And I think she just naturally, just a Black woman being in there, she's going to look at certain cases with a different eye. But still, I don't want her to do anything immoral on behalf of the Black community, because I think it's too much injustice going around in general. And so I want her to carry out her job the best way she can. But what's really important for her is the image of a Black woman as a Supreme Court justice, and that image being in the minds and stuck in the minds of all Black children, boys and girls across the country, so that they can see as a goal that I can serve as a Supreme Court justice. But bigger than that, I could serve as a judge locally, on a state level, on a federal level. I could serve in a judgeship. I think it's important for her to do her job and have her tenure with integrity, and stick to the integrity and the character that she's bringing into this thing, so that she can lay down that legacy and have that image for all the Black kids that are watching her and all the Black kids that are yet to come.
Yeah. And I think that to add to that, and I think you hit the nail on the head by providing that analysis, but I think to add to that, brother, when you know, anytime any of us get into a space that we're like breaking any type of ceilings, we do have a responsibility to make sure that the next generation understands the significance of it, right?
Right.
And so we do have to do more than what another person may have to do.
Right.
You know, and you know, when we talk in the next segment about Clarence Justice Thomas and the fate of his leadership in the Supreme Court, I think that, like, for example, I remember after the confirmation hearings, after, like, when I remember watching Anita Hill and all of that situation going down when I was a little boy, I don't remember him saying things or speaking to the interests of Black people. Now, again, I was young, so he may have, but to build that relationship, to say, yeah, I'm a Black man sitting on the Supreme Court,
right,
and I'm gonna make sure that other Black boys and other Black girls have an opportunity,
right.
And I think that's part of. And I know that anytime we do first, or anytime we do things that our people aren't always able to do, like, that should be a part of our role and responsibility. I'm not asking for Judge Jackson to go on a national tour to talk about her being a Supreme Court judge, but I do know that there is going to be, like, for example, sit down with Black media, talking to college students, right? Going to Black law schools, like, you know, and just doing a little bit more.
Yeah.
So we can feel connected in the victory and in the celebration and in the history of her getting that seat. Now, again, I might be way off and I might be stepping way out of bounds or out of my lane and expecting that. But anytime we break that glass ceiling, we got to know we have to start building the bridge to make sure that the next generation understand, look, I'm here today, but I won't be here tomorrow. And I'm here today because somebody else paved the way for me. Yeah. So I'm going to just extend my hand.
And I think she's that type of woman, Farajii.
Yeah.
I really do. When I saw that exchange between her and Cory Booker and how he reacted, I was like, man, this is not just a Clarence Thomas who we're not even sure if he's proud to be Black. Like, this is a Black woman that's extremely proud to be Black and knows that she's a Black woman and takes her role as a Black woman very seriously. Though on the surface, she does have to remain unbiased and poised and elegant as she's been holding it down.
But you know, hey, I'm all for it. But don't forget, you were the first Black woman. Say that from the top of the mountain, brother.
That's right. I'm with you.
I mean, say that, man. Go on. I'm telling you, go on Black media. Come on to the Black Star Network.
That's right.
Give us an exclusive interview, right?
Yeah.
I don't care who. Look, I don't care what show, because if it could be with Dr. Jackie for all I care.
Right.
With a balanced life. You go on Dr. Jackie. You say, hey, this is how I keep my life balanced as a new Supreme Court judge. And what I don't care. Go on the Black table. I don't care. Yeah. It's just about making sure that people understand, like, we with you.
That's right.
We with you. We in the trenches with you.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And again, I just hope and pray that you know, it's like when we get that type of leadership. Oh, but you know, and just very quickly, I know we got to take a quick pause. In my understanding of history and in my study of leadership, I've studied white leadership and I've studied Black leadership.
Right.
Man, one of the few things that some of the greatest leaders, what they always understood is that they are just a part of the chain.
That's right.
Right? They are just a link. And at every level, they always were able to communicate. They were always able to build that bridge or to build those relationships, right? At every level, right? To bring us along.
Yep, she has a responsibility, definitely.
You know what I'm saying? And I know some people might say, well, let her get her feet wet and all of those things. And I true that. I definitely true that. But this is an appointment for life. So she's going to, God willing, she's to be blessed with many, many years. But just understand that, like, Just like President Obama, I'll never forget that picture. I know many folks, y'all remember this picture. The little black boy touching his hair when he was standing in the Oval Office. Right. Or him hugging or talking to black children. Man, let me tell you something. It's moments like that that will change a child's life. It's moments like that that will change people.
That's right.
So it's about making sure that people understand, like, yeah, I'm here, but I'm not here alone. I'm here with you.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And I'm not saying you got to show bias, but nobody can take away the fact that you are a black woman.
You got to stand in that. Yep.
Just stand in that. And that you're raising a black girl.
That's right.
So that's all it is, brother. All right, look, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about that other black judge. Judge Clarence Thomas. People are calling, most importantly, progressives such as Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and others are saying that Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas needs to resign as a result of his wife, Virginia Jenny Thomas, sending out those crazy text messages to the Trump administration saying, look, you can't be sitting on the bench and your wife is doing all this other stuff. And as a result of that, you're not recusing yourself from any cases. You are still making decisions about January the 6th. What do you think? Should Clarence Thomas resign, sit down as a result of his wife's indiscretion? Let's just call it that. We'll have that conversation. Also, later on in the hour, we'll check in with Coach Butch McAdams to talk about Title IX. We'll talk about the latest move by the NFL to make it more inclusive and a whole lot more in the sports world. So stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
folks, welcome to the second hour of today's show here on the culture here on the Black Star Network. Oh my goodness. All right, let's jump into this because we just had in our previous segment talked about the confirmation of Supreme Court nominee Judge Ketanji Jackson. Looks like it's a free ride now that she's gotten the vocal support of Joe Manchin and now Republican Senator Susan Collins. But now let's talk about the other side of the conversation. As one judge is sitting in, was trying to get their seat in, another judge may possibly be forced out. We're talking about, of course, Supreme Court Judge Clarence Thomas. Judge Thomas is under fire right now, and there are many calls for him to resign. Calls coming from a lot of different people, including Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, because people are worried and are doubtful about his impartiality on the bench, considering his wife, Jenny Thomas's involvement with helping to create the environment. She didn't say how to do it. She just said it needed to get done. The text messages that she sent to former President Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, and how she was pretty much very adamant about stopping the election, overturning the election, doing something to stop President Biden from being elected to the United States presidency. So people are saying, look, how can he sit on the Supreme Court bench and be impartial, especially when it comes to some of these cases involving the January 6th insurrection? So we're asking the question, should Clarence Thomas resign? Again, this is an appointment for life, folks. So, of course, he would either have to resign, walk away, or he would have to, the president would need to tell him he needs to hit the road. But what do you think? Post your comments on our YouTube and our Facebook pages. And of course, we would love to hear what you got to say as we have this conversation. But I want to bring back Culture Crew member. He serves as the founder and chairman of the Tendea family, Brother Elijah Miles. Brother Elijah, what do you think about this whole controversy? I mean, we already know Clarence Thomas, even though he's a black man, he does not represent or really speak to the interest of black people, right? We know that. He is a Republican. Not to say that all Republicans are that way. I'm just saying that Clarence Thomas is that way. But people are really asking the question, like, how can he sit on one of the highest courts in the land and still preside over these cases? And he has not made any or given any indicator that he plans to recuse himself, that he's planning to not make any, not make any decision on the cases around January the 6th. Do you find that to be very problematic?
Yep, it's definitely problematic. It's extremely alarming because his not wanting to recuse himself in this case, it speaks to a larger character issue. It's that you can't be unbiased with something that's dealing with your wife. It's no way you can be unbiased and impartial when it's your wife that's at stake or is related to the situation. It's the same reason why you don't have to be compelled in court to speak against your spouse because they know that I'm biased in the situation. But the fact that someone has to ask him to recuse himself or tell him to take a step back from this case relating to the Capitol uprisings, it's really alarming. It speaks to a larger character issue that if he can't be man enough to take a step back on this case, then maybe he should step down because you're unable to be impartial or even unable to strive to be impartial. And when you realize that you're not able to be impartial, you're man enough to take a step back.
But I mean, any individual who has a moral compass, who has the character, right, would say, okay, I might need to step away a little bit from these decisions. That's if you truly are a real servant, right? Because you understand the connection, you understand the optics, so all of that. But Brother Elijah, we're talking about modern day America 2022, where status and power is everything.
Yeah.
We're talking about modern day America in 2022, where I would say corrupted individuals hold great seats of power.
That's right.
Right? We're talking about modern day America in 2022, where people truly believe that regardless of whatever dirty laundry comes out about them, that their status or their place makes them exempt,
right,
from being from suffering any type of consequences. That's the culture that we're in right now.
Yeah.
And I personally, I don't see Justice Clarence Thomas stepping down. I just don't see it. I don't have any hope that he's going to step down. I feel like he would need to be forced out.
Yeah.
Like the court would have to say, hey man, you bringing too much heat to this situation.
Right.
Like somebody, one of his colleagues would have to put a bug in his ear and say, you need to step down. If it's coming from the public, I don't think he would step down.
Not at all. And I don't believe so either. But like I said, it speaks to a character issue. It really does speak to a character issue that we have to really vet. And this is why I'm cool with them vetting Judge Ketanji. But we do have to vet people's character that are going to be judges, that are going to deal with cases. Because right now he's proven to be a person not of high moral character. And I read somewhere that when I think the voting commission was asking for the text messages.
Yeah.
And all of the Supreme Court justices voted for them to have access to those text messages, except Judge Clarence Thomas. So I believe he's already proven that he's not just unbiased and impartial, but he's also proven that he lacks character. Because you should have took a step back, even in that voting. You should have took a step back and say, hey, I can't vote on this. I'm connected. I don't believe that you didn't know your wife was texting Mark Meadows, or you didn't know that your wife was involved in this thing. You knew. You completely knew. You sleep with her. You completely knew. And yet you still was the only one to vote against in that situation. And so, yeah, it's sick. It's sick stuff.
It's really sick. And I'm looking for, some of people are checking in on our YouTube page, Elijah, and someone made that exact same point. There's no way in the world that you can be laying next to a person and just in the course of pillow talk, right? You know what I mean? Like when Jenny Thomas said that she was going to talk to her best friend, who do y'all think her best friend is?
Yeah.
I mean, for real. I mean, I know we got, when you married, Elijah, both of us are married.
That's right.
If something juicy is going on, something crazy is going on, who the first person you gonna call?
There's gonna be a conversation, definitely.
Right. I'm calling my wife, man.
Right.
Not calling my homeboy. I'm calling my wife, man. Be like, babe, you want to hear something crazy?
Yeah.
Man, what are the odds? And see, that's the thing. That's the thing, bro. The thing is that it's insulting to the American people when people think like, when Justice Thomas might think like, well, I didn't have those conversations. First, your wife already put you on blast because there ain't nobody other best friend. I don't think she's talking about a girlfriend. I don't think she's talking about some old schoolmate. She put you on blast, but what you really want us to believe? That you never had a conversation about your wife, who is a Republican supporter. She's been supporting Republican for years. Who had access to the President of the United States of America.
Mm.
Who behind the scenes wield a lot of power. and influence. Not just because she knows how to get certain things done, but also because she's the wife of a Supreme Court justice.
Right.
So you're telling me that none of that came into play and that you don't know nothing about the text messages?
Yeah.
Or her, not even just the text messages. You don't know nothing about her politics, her views.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Come on.
It's ridiculous. And it is
that's insulting.
Intelligence.
That's insulting.
Intelligence.
It's insulting. Here's what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said. She said Clarence Thomas should resign. If not, his failure to disclose income from right-wing organizations, recuse himself from matters involving his wife, and his vote to block the January 6th commission from key information must be investigated and could serve as grounds for impeachment. Mr. Thomas, back in 2011, was accused of failing to report $687,000 his wife earned from the right-wing Heritage Foundation over several years, instead checking a box on a disclosure form indicating she earned no income.
See, this thing is crazy.
This is what I got. This is what the report from. This is from Huffington Post.
These things be crazy, man. Because it's all these lobbyists and interest groups, and why are they interested in
they fattening the pockets, right?
Yeah.
So whatever her situation was with the Heritage Foundation is probably, they always can fall under some level of consultant work. You know what I mean? Like she might be, I'm a consultant, right? I get it. I mean, I know they do this, and let's keep it real, because I think we need to keep this ultra real, because I want this to be a platform of truth and justice, not just a partisan platform. Democrats do the same thing too.
Right, but don't play in our face. Yeah.
So we know both sides do. They play around and they get the money, right? But $687,000 his wife earned. He hasn't recused himself, and he blocked. He was the only judge. To side with former President Donald Trump. Failed legal attempt to prevent House investigators, folks, check this out, from getting their hands on that vast trove of presidential papers. He was the only judge. Oh man, y'all must think we stupid as hell.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. Seriously. And yesterday when we talked about this, Elijah, we brought up the point that the January 6th situation, the conspiracy runs so far, so broad, and so deep because it involves so many different people, right? And how, I mean, look, if you know, and I'm thinking of Donald Trump, if you know that one of your top supporters is the wife of a Supreme Court judge, and you conspiring to do some stuff, right? Some illegal stuff to disrupt the certification of the national election. And you got him on the side. You got the Supreme Court justice in your pocket. Because why? His wife is telling you something needs to be done. And essentially she's telling you, don't worry about my husband. I got him. You do what you need to do to stop Joe Biden from getting in the seat. Yeah, I mean, you see what I'm saying? That thing deep, man. That thing is deeper than a Tom Clancy novel, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, when you think about that, when you think about this, and this is why folks, I'm telling you, this is why we understand, like, Elijah, he's a political science major. I understand political science a little bit. But here's the thing, though. When you got this level of undermining that is happening, I'm going to go back to something I said, Elijah. How can you call people who don't vote un-American,
right,
unpatriotic. But the people who, quote unquote, represent are the ones that are doing the most damage to this democratic system. And you don't call them un-American or unpatriotic. If you were to say that to Donald Trump, I'm not un-American, I'm not unpatriotic, but everything you're doing undermines the whole principles and the ideas and ideals of democracy.
Yeah.
But if somebody don't vote in an election because they're frustrated because they're not getting what they want, they're not getting their interests met, you call them unpatriotic or un-American. Look how backwards that is and how unjust that is, because that's a slap in the face. Yeah. Go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
No, you on it. That's the truth. And what's deeper to me and is so disrespectful to me is the harm that Clarence Thomas is causing to the Black community. Because being a political science major, you see that it's a history of whether it's Black mayors or Black senators or Black congresspeople where they've been proven to be corrupt. They get caught with their hand in a cookie jar. Though we know other people groups are doing it too, that are senators, that are mayors, that are governors. There's a long history of Black men and women being caught in corruption scandals and corruption cases. And yet Clarence Thomas operating in one of the highest places a Black man is right now politically in the country, and yet he's on some corrupt stuff and getting his hand caught in the cookie jar in the faces of everybody else. And so what it's saying to not just white people and other people, forget them, what it's saying to the minds of Black kids is that even if we're not in the hood selling drugs, we still upstairs in this high office doing similar criminal things. So no matter whether we Clarence Thomas or you the boy on the corner, the Black man is criminal. And that is being put in the minds of our kids, because when Clarence Thomas' history is written, and it will be written, he's the second Black male to serve as Supreme Court justice. His history will be written. And when his history is written, they're going to have to include that part. And what does that do to the minds of kids? What does that do to the minds of our people that say, dang, the Black man is just by nature corrupt and criminal and of low morals. So in other words, N-words ain't nothing, as they say.
Right. Let me just say, Janelle checked in and said, Jenny Deere doesn't strike me as someone who would have done anything in secret. These Trump cultures are so bold with their BS. Just look at January the 6th. They publicly call each other best friend. They're so, and the unfortunate part about it is, these are folks who claim that they are for this country, but deep down inside, underneath that veneer, that facade of whatever position that they're in, they hate the idea of democracy, where you're talking about representation of the people. They hate the idea of structure, of the certain checks and balances that we have in this government, right? That's what President Trump hates, that he can't make a unilateral decision without first going to the Senate and to the House of Representatives. He hated that. Because he wanted to do it all by himself, right? So you got folks that felt entitled to this power to feel like, hey, I could do whatever I want to. Nobody can stop me. And if you do stop me, then you the problem. But they don't understand that they are the cause as to the diminishing foundation of democracy in this country. And they are also adding to the growing dissatisfaction sentiment that exists in this country. Like, you're only working for your own demise. That's what it is. Let me just say it. Let me see. Clinton said, if Judge Thomas resigns, do you think President Biden would replace him with another Black male judge? That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know if he would replace him with a Black. I don't know. If a president gets one Supreme Court nomination, that's a big deal, right? We all know that. That's huge. If you get two, Please. He may not replace him with a black man judge. He may replace him with a Latino judge. Or
because this is a historic seat. This is the seat that Thurgood Marshall operated in. And so it's still a historic seat. And so I think it'll be a big deal. I would hope it'll be a big deal if he replace it with a black judge, because of how tradition works, that if you get 4 or 5 black judges in a row that operate in that same seat, it has to be black forever, because it's in the minds of the people that that's the black seat, that black people. So I think it would continue a precedent that'd be powerful, because we're a black man, a black person will always be operating in as a Supreme Court justice, which is powerful for our community.
Yeah. Taylor said that self-governing policy is a fair whenever it is the case. Make it stop. Self-governing policy. Let me keep it going, folks. Keep your comments going as we have this conversation. Trump, Lana said Trump got 2 Supreme Court picks. Who were the 2 that he got? Oh, Amy Coney Barrett and Judge Kavanaugh, was it?
Yep.
Yeah. So Lana, you're absolutely right. And so it's. I mean, that's the thing. Like, but my hope is, and I'm part of me is like, that's the right thing to do. Not necessarily to resign, but at least recuse yourself. But I just don't feel confident that he's going to do the right thing at this point.
But the pressure, man, the media pressure is something. So he might have to respond, because that stuff matters too. That stuff matters.
Let me just share with you folks. Earlier this week, the day is Wednesday. So on Monday, a group of 22 members of Congress led by Senator Elizabeth Warren and Representative Pramila Jayapal, who is a Democrat out of Washington State, she sent Thomas and Chief Justice John Roberts a letter demanding a written explanation. They called on Chief Justice Thomas to recuse himself from future cases relating to the election or the riot. They also are saying that federal law requires a judge to step aside in any case in which his impartiality might reasonably be questioned. Now, they said, quote, in this letter, from these 22 members of Congress, the letter said, quote, given the recent disclosure about Ms. Thomas's efforts to overturn the election and her specific communications with White House officials about doing so, Justice Thomas's participation in cases involving the 2020 election and the January 6th attack is exceedingly difficult to reconcile with federal ethics requirements. And some other Democrats, which understandably so, believe that that Justice Thomas should step down or face impeachment. But even if he recuses himself, right? We already know that you're not biased. I mean, that you're biased. We already know that.
You made that plain, yeah. By your actions already with the vote.
Your actions already know. You know what I mean? And not just that you're just biased, but you're dangerously biased.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So who's to say? Okay, say if Judge Thomas recuses himself from those decisions, okay. But we got another election coming up in November and in 2024. Who's to say that your wife ain't gonna be back at it with her antics?
That's right. That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who's to say that she's not gonna be like? I mean, what he could chastise his wife and say, "Well, baby,
right.
You know, I told you not to do that. You shouldn't have done it." Blah blah blah. And she'd be like, "Okay, Clarence, okay." But who's to say, like, what you want to take her phone? I mean, who's to say that she's not going to be back doing something to undermine, quote unquote, democracy or this American experiment? Who's to say that those things won't continue to happen?
Yeah.
And that say, even in this congressional election that we got coming up in November, that any Republican, congressional candidate might get a couple of boosts, get some boosts or get some intel. I mean, who's to say?
Yeah.
Like nobody, I don't know about you because this is the thing. Like I didn't know Virginia Thomas was so deep into the situation, the way that I've read and learned. Man, you're an operative at this point, so we can't trust you.
The more we learn about that, it's like, dang, this been going on for a while. Y'all a major, powerful political family, and you support everything she does. You can't convince me you don't. You support 100% everything she does, and she may be doing most of it on your behalf because you can't do it.
Well, in your name.
Yep, in your name. So she got your full support, and not only
full support, bro.
You probably want to do it yourself if you wasn't Justice Thomas.
So here's it. The crazy thing is your wife doing the dirty work.
Right.
While you doing the quote unquote clean work of looking at cases and being impartial and unbiased and all of those things. That's what you put out there. But your wife behind the scenes is doing all the dirty work, might be doing it in your name. Who's to say you're not passing files? Who's to say that you're not giving her intel to pass on to the GOP? I mean, there's so many unanswered questions about your trustworthiness, about your ability to do your job. I just think it's absolutely insane. We got to take a quick pause. When we come back, we're going to be checking in with Coach Butch McAdams because we're going to switch gears and talk about all things sports. Title IX. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the NFL's new mandate of having a minority assistant coach. This is something. Let's talk about the overtime rules. Let's get into some sports when we come right back. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Yes, we want to now switch gears and have a conversation about sports. We're always happy to bring on our big brother. He serves as the host for In and Out of Sports, Coach Butch McAdams. And of course, we're joined by Culture Crew member Elijah Miles. Coach, how are you, sir?
Hitting and holding, rocking and rolling.
I hear that. Coach, let's jump right into it because we got a lot to talk about today, Coach.
Let's do it.
Let's do this. Let's first talk about it has been 50 years since Title IX. And this is for those that aren't familiar with Title IX as it relates to sports, Coach, break it down for us. Very easy for folks to understand.
Well, you're basically talking about equal access to based on gender, okay? And being a lifelong career professional physical educator, I am certainly an advocate of having equal programs for boys and girls in our schools, okay? And having the facilities equal, and everything should be equal at the amateur level. So that, in a nutshell, that's what it's about.
So it's about equality, making sure that what is done for boys is done for girls.
Absolutely.
So
it's been
50 years since this, and I guess we could say this law, because it was passed in 1972. And
right.
Pretty much it banned discrimination in higher education and, of course, in sports. But the USA Today just recently did an analysis of where we are with Title IX. And according to their data, they did this in collaboration with the Knight Newhouse Data Project at Syracuse University. And they found that they looked at sports at least 40 of the schools that sponsored comparable male and female squads: basketball, baseball, softball, golf, soccer, swimming, diving, and tennis. And they found that even though Title IX is supposed to ban discrimination, that the playing field still remains uneven, where colleges and universities across the nation devote fewer resources to women's sports than men's, according to their data. How is that possible? Why are women's sports in particular still underfunded and has less resources?
Well, I think it depends on your program. I don't think that's the case in terms of being underfunded at UConn. I don't think that's the case at, let's say, South Carolina, and in places that have had successful women's basketball programs. Now, some of the other sports that they call non-revenue, then that's a different situation. But in the real world, when you're at the collegiate level and you're talking about money, then all the equality goes out the window. And what's in play is that the program that can generate the most money will get the best perks, etc. And that's it. Now, whether it's fair or not, certainly that's up for debate. But the reality is in a capitalistic society, it's based on how much you can generate in terms of finances. And as I say, that the programs like the UConn Huskies with women, South Carolina, maybe Notre Dame, I don't think that's the case because they are generating good, I'm talking about very, very good attendance on a regular basis. So they're bringing in money.
So according to this analysis, Coach, they found USA Today found that for every dollar schools spent on travel, equipment, and recruiting for men's team, they only put out just 71 cents on women. Over 2 seasons, that added up to $125 million more for men than women in basketball, baseball, and softball, golf, soccer, swimming, and diving, and tennis.
Well, look, and women don't have football, to my knowledge, but in basketball, I'm going to say it again. If you go on the campus of University of Connecticut, where you have a successful men's program and an extremely successful women's program, now I don't think it's probably dollar for dollar, but I can't see the women's program being terribly underfunded. I just can't see it because they generate money. And
right.
it's based on the amenities that you get is based on the monies that you generate.
And Coach, how does that play out? You talk about UConn. How does that play out, or how does this dynamic play out within HBCUs?
Well, I think.
Are we talking about a deep disparity? Are we talking about an extreme underfunding of women's programs?
It could be underfunding, but I don't think it's going to be that extreme in terms of the disparity, because a lot of the HBCU programs, their budgets aren't that large.
To even begin with, whether it's for men or women.
Right. And a budget, let's say the budget is for recruiting. And if you're a big school, you have let's say you're a Kentucky, or you're a Duke, or you're UNC, Kansas, Villanova, Blue Bloods. You have nearly an unlimited budget to recruit. You can fly to different places in the world or the country several times. But if you're HBCU, your budget is so limited that you can only go to see a prospect that you're almost certain you're going to get.
Wow.
And that's important. That's extremely important.
I want to bring in Culture Crew member Elijah Miles. Elijah, what's your take on this level of discrimination, or trying to prevent or ban such discrimination when it comes to sports?
I'm with the coach. I believe that I think the biggest disparities is not between male and female. I think the biggest disparities is between HBCUs and PWIs, which is why I think it's wonderful that some of these NFL coaches, some of these former NFL players are going to coaching at HBCUs. Some of these great prospects are beginning to choose to go to HBCUs, because I think us as a community, we have to improve not just the presence of HBCUs, but HBCUs have to grow these sports programs that can be compared to these PWIs, because there's a whole lot of money that comes through sports. My father, every year until the day he transitioned, he watched all the college games he could put his eyes on, but he didn't watch a lot of sporting events related to HBCUs because it just wasn't available for him to watch, because no one's paying attention to the HBCUs. So I think we have to fix the racial divide between PWIs and HBCUs, but I think the gender divide, I haven't, at Morgan State University, the illustrious Morgan State University that I went to, I didn't see a lot of that. What I did see was a lot of European white people that were getting major scholarships on Morgan State campus for playing tennis, and I didn't know a lot of black people that I knew that actually had sports scholarships. So even on HBCU campuses, I saw a lot of disparities as it relates to race, but not necessarily gender.
And I know, Coach, when we're talking about, how do we start to close the gap? Where do we start with this? Because you already acknowledged there were a couple of issues. One is the program size. The second thing is whether that program is set up to make money or is it just there for recreational purposes.
Right.
The other thing is, of course, you know, whatever the budget is for that school for any type of sports program. And then, of course, we can't, you know, omit the fact that regardless of your program, if you don't have exciting players to generate the interest, then it doesn't matter.
Well, I think, look, there's an old saying in sport, and it applies to high school and college. Coaching staffs don't win championships first. Administrations win them. And what I mean by that is it starts at the top. If you have an administration that wants to put emphasis without sacrificing your academic record or reputation, it can be done. And I really, really get angry with some of the schools who in the past, maybe they're changing a little bit now, that, for example, didn't want to have good athletics because they thought it would compromise their academic standings. And I would always say, look at Duke. Look at Stanford. Stanford has great football teams, produce great athletes, and they still have great academic standings. So you can do both, but it starts with the want. How good of a program do you want? You know, how, and look, I'm a proponent of our 4- and 5-star athletes going to HBCUs, but not because they're HBCUs only. You got to go to a school that wants to win and wants to have decent facilities.
In fact, that's a big fact. Big fact. I want to switch gears on this, Coach, because I want to get your take on the NFL's mandate now. The NFL is now requiring that all of its teams need to hire a minority or female offensive assistant coach for the 2022 season. The league also says that it's a Rooney Rule, which requires every team to interview at least 2 external minority candidates for open head coaching positions, folks, will expand to provide more opportunities for women to secure front office roles. And this came as a result of the annual league meeting that they had down in Palm Beach, Florida.
Right.
So what's your take on this requirement, this mandate of having a minority or female offensive assistant coach?
Well, I on one hand, it's a step in the right direction, but as we've said before, you can't legislate people's hearts, and you can't force a team or owner to hire a black head coach, because that owner is going to hire that person who they're comfortable with.
Right.
That's the bottom line. And so while I see it as a step in the right direction, it's more of a Band-Aid approach. I'm not knocking it. It is something, but I'm not looking at it as a big deal.
Do you think that do you think teams will take it serious? You know, I mean, we know that the Washington, is it the Commanders? That's the new name now. The Washington Commanders, they have Jennifer King, who is their running back coach. But do you think that these teams will really make an effort to try to meet these requirements?
Well, I think that it should be some sanctions put in place for teams who don't make a sincere effort. Okay.
Gotcha. I like that, Brother Elijah, when you're talking about sanctions and mandates. I mean, it's sad, though, that in 2022, we are at this point and at this place where you got to force people to do the right thing, Elijah.
Yeah, it is sad. And I'm with the coach also that I don't believe you can legislate people's hearts. And I think sometimes we try to blind ourselves to the reality of just how racist some of these owners are, how racist some of these head coaches are. And we want to blind ourselves to that reality. And what I'm afraid of is that if you legislate a thing like this, then we might get confused in 10 years and may think it's all well and dandy, where the NFL is just doing whatever it has to do to survive, to keep viewership, to make people know that they're addressing it in a certain way. And what I also don't like, I'm all for Black people getting jobs, but what I don't like is how Black people continue to carry the load to knock these doors open, and then they say, well, minorities and women. It's like, well, minorities and women ain't fighting for some of these things. It's Black people that's paying the cost. It's Black people that are out in the streets. It's Black people, if it's social media, that's on it talking about it. But yet we open the doors for minorities, women, and all other people. And they don't have to do much of the work to make it happen. So I think they need to be real clear that it's Black people that have historically been oppressed and discriminated against throughout the whole history of the country. And so when you apply a solution to a Black issue, how about you just say Black people and not include everybody else all the time? So that's my issue with it.
Mm-hmm. But I think too that I mean the NFL is moving so slow, Coach and Brother Elijah, that on these things and the way the NFL move, and Coach, you talked about this time and time again, except for in certain matters, but most of the time the NFL has to be compelled and forced by public pressure, by the threat of lost revenue, in order to make some very important and dramatic decisions. And I mean, and I was just saying real quick, Coach, that I mean, how can an organization like the National Football League stay sustainable? And I'm saying, of course, I'm not talking about financially, but I'm saying in terms of the sentiment of the fans. How can they remain sustainable? How can they remain in a place where fans and others will be willing to invest their money and time for this into this organization?
Well, you look at the various sports and how they market their brand.
Yeah.
And let's take the NBA and the NFL, compare and contrast briefly. There's a big difference. The NBA is a players' league. They market their players. And every generation, every decade, they have a different star they groom to take over. Okay? So let's say in the 70s, the big star was Dr. J. All right. And then after that, you had Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. And then after that, you had Michael Jordan. And then after Jordan, you had Kobe and Shaq and some others. And then came LeBron and Kevin Durant. And now they're grooming this next generation of young stars like Jay Morant and some of the European players. They market the players. The NFL, on the other hand, they market the team. And case in point, a few years ago, players went on strike. Now, when the NBA went on strike, it shut it down. But when the NFL went on strike, what did the owners do? The owners say, look, we don't market stars very seldomly, but we market the uniform. And so the games continued with scab players. Now, the attendance weren't, capacity in stadiums, but people came, and guess what? People watched it. And
That's
one
true.
of the most exciting games for me, and the games counted. That's the other thing. They counted the games. Washington that year went to the Super Bowl and won it because they stayed organized and they were ready. And you remember the replacement game. where Washington had replacement players against at least half or close to half of a regular Dallas Cowboy lineup, and they beat them.
Right.
But that's the NFL's marketing genius in terms of they market the uniform, not the player.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to keep our eyes on that. There's also part of the Rooney Rule where the owners at that same meeting in Palm Beach, Florida, and we don't have time to go into the details. So, Coach, we're going to have to bring you back on the details for this. But they also talked about expanding the Rooney Rule to not only talk about coaches, but also talking about ownership, to be more inclusive of Black owners and minority ownership in the league. And so we will have to discuss that. But I want to get very quickly, Coach, we got about a minute left. The Final Four has been officially set. What's your take?
Well, real quick, enough of this Cinderella underdog talk. I used the term moments ago, and I'll refer to it once again, blue bloods. You've got Villanova, you've got Kansas, you've got Duke and UNC. And that Duke and UNC game, keep an eye on it, guys, and see what type of viewership it draws. I'm saying it's going to be one of the top, if not the top watched Final Fours in a long time. But I like, I'm going to go with the winner of the UNC Duke game will win the national championship.
Wow. Elijah, you a big college basketball fan?
No, sir. My father didn't pass that down to me. But I got great respect for it. Yeah.
I got great respect for it. You got great. Some of the greatest NBA players have come from those squads. So it will be very, very fascinating. And this is I know that the one of the big narratives for Duke is that this is going to be Coach K's this is his final go. Is that right, Coach?
It is, but let me say this quickly if I have time.
Sure, go ahead.
I am so anti-Duke Coach K at this point.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you why. Tommy Amaker, who was a brilliant point guard for Duke, and he's been a coach all over, currently at Harvard. The administration, the school, wanted Tommy Amaker to succeed Coach K. Coach K stopped it and named one of his current assistant coach as his successor, who happens to be white. Now, I don't know the reason for it, but on the surface, it doesn't look good, because I know for a fact that if it weren't for a guy like Johnny Dawkins and Tommy Amaker, Coach K may have gotten fired.
Ain't that always the story, though, Coach?
Not always. No, because you look at Hubert Davis.
Yeah.
And, he's a head coach at North Carolina, right down the road. So not always the story. You got Patrick Ewing, he's a head coach at Georgetown. And Juwan Howard, as we discussed, is at Michigan. So it's not always the case, but it still is the case. The young man Holloway, who did such a marvelous job at St. Peter's, he's getting ready to take the Seton Hall head job. And you talk about disparity. They beat Kentucky. And I know the Kentucky coach has to be making, and I'm guessing, at least $2 or $3 million a year.
Damn.
Has to be. Coach Holloway at St. Peter's is making $266,000. Now, in the real working world, that's good money.
No,
that's good money in the real world, but not at the NCAA Division I men's level.
Nope.
where you have assistants, got assistant coaches making more money than the head coach. But he's getting ready to go, according to reports, to Seton Hall, and he's going to get paid.
There it is. There it is. Coach, we got to stop you right there. Always a pleasure to bring you in to give us some analysis and updates about what's happening in the sports world. And so we will certainly bring you back to have more conversations, Coach.
All you have to do is give me a call. Thank you.
Thank you. Coach Butch McAdams checking in. You can check him out on In and Out of Sports. He's the host of that sports conversation right there. Elijah, my man Elijah, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for doing the great work you're doing. And thank you so much for your insight. And being, of course, so good for the culture, brother Elijah.
Yes, sir. Thanks a lot for having me. It's a great show today. You know, Nira come back. We held it down. No.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We're going to bring Nira back on this one. We're going to bring her Nira back. I'll definitely let her know that you asked about her. But I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. And God willing, we'll talk soon.
Yes, sir. Peace.
Peace, brother. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I thank each and every one of you for being a part of the conversation today. I thank you all for your comments and your insights. Let's keep the conversation going. You can hit me up on all of my social media at Farajii Muhammad or Farajii. I'm Farajii on Twitter, Farajii. Farajii Muhammad on Instagram. I would love to hear what you have to say as we continue to put out these shows and put out this information. Also, we need your support. You know what it is, blackstarnetwork.com. We need your support for Black-owned media. So support us right now through Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, and Zelle. And we would love to get your donation to continue to build on this platform that we call Black Star Network. Even if you can't financially give, you can certainly give by sharing all of the shows, talking to your family and friends to download the app for free, and most importantly, to tune in each and every day to the great conversations that we got for you. So you can do that, all of that at blackstarnetwork.com. Stay tuned. Up next is my big brother Roland Martin with Roland Martin Unfiltered. So I know y'all to bring the Funk fan club. Get ready for that. We've been having a phenomenal success over these past couple of days, a lot of big stories, and you've been making Roland Martin Unfiltered and the Black Star Network so great. And we want to continue to keep the momentum going. So continue to show your love for Roland Martin Unfiltered, for Dr. Jackie and the Balanced Life, for the Black Table, for Get Wealthy, all of our programs here on the Black Star Network. It's not just about me, it's about us. And make sure, and I'm personally, I am just grateful to be a part of a stellar lineup of talent and hosts. Thank you so much for your support. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Talk to you soon, family. Peace.